For the last 25 years, I've been in real estate, which is my passion. Back in 2015, I started working in the family office space directly for several prominent families on their real estate portfolios. With 70% of families losing their wealth by the second generation and 90% by the third generation, I then realized that real estate would be the missing component for families, allowing them to maintain their legacy and mitigate how much wealth is lost for future generations. It was shortly after working for my first single-family office that I started interviewing successful real estate families and industry experts. These conversations, combined with my first-hand experience of working for families on their real estate investments and currently investing on behalf of families, that has allowed me to share this knowledge with other family offices, family members, and family office professionals so they too can be good stewards of wealth. I'm DJ Van Keuren, and this is Family Office Real Estate Insights from the Family Office Real Estate Institute. So today I am very excited to have Sal Lupoli out of Massachusetts joining us today at the Four Institute. Sal, thank you for taking the time. I know you're very busy, but thank you for being on the show.
DJ, thank you very much. It's an honor to be on the show with an old-time friend like you. So I'm excited to answer any questions you may have, but what a privilege.
All right. Well, thank you very much. What I want to do is I want to go back to, I know, we're going to get to the real estate part, but it didn't start in real estate, right? It started back with pizza, correct?
That's partially correct.
All right. So why don't you start from the beginning, how this whole thing started? I know that, you'd wanted to eventually get through the real estate, but, when you graduated, where did you go to work, and did you work for yourself? How did that whole thing start?
Great question, DJ. It's, first of all, very humble beginnings, born in East Boston, Massachusetts. Very gritty, city, very, challenged as far as an economic perspective. But I was born in East Boston, and, as I was growing up, sitting around the family table, I always heard of my generational family members, grandmothers and aunts and uncles talk about the value of real estate. And if you want to be successful in this country, you need to buy property. My relatives, for the most part, were all from Italy. My father is the first generation. I'm second generation born in this country. So all of the relatives talked about one thing, owning real estate. So as I grew older in my life, I remembered that. And as I attended Northeastern University, I graduated from MIT and Northeastern University. But as I was attending Northeastern University, I went to my father. I was probably 19 or 20 at the time. I was probably a junior at the time. And I said, "Hey, Dad, you know what? I know what I want to do. I want to be an entrepreneur, and I want to buy real estate." And very quickly, he told me, "Sal, you need equity to buy real estate. We don't have
Money. That little part. Money.
Exactly right. Six boys. My father was very sick much of his life, passed away at a very young age, 61 years old. So from his bed, he told me, maybe what an idea might be, Sal, is you create an operating business, and you put the operating business someday in the real estate that you buy. Banks will look favorably on you. You'll be what's called owner occupied. And maybe, you could get loans at a very young age, much better than you could walking into a bank today and saying, 'Hey, I want to speculate and buy some real estate. Will you lend me the money?'" So really, DJ, the operating entity that I created became Sal's Pizza. And it was really at Northeastern that I came up with the idea through a lot of research of the food industry. Why the food industry? Low barriers of entry, especially with money. When I made a decision, I was still at Northeastern to go into the pizza business. It was 6 months before I graduated. I signed a lease, and 6 months after I graduated, I was pretty much in the retail store working. But it was really from the idea of owning real estate and using the pizza business as that vehicle to get there 9 months after I opened my first store, I purchased my first piece of real estate using the same model that my father described. Use a business you created, put it in real estate, banks will look favorably at you.
Wow. Okay. So, and when was this when you started the business?
I started, I graduated June of 89. I opened the pizzeria September of 1990 officially to the customers, but I was in there for probably well over a year, kind of building it out. We didn't have a lot of money and we were kind of, I was working and every week I would take the money from work and pour it in and pay a vendor a little bit more money or a contractor a little bit more money to do a little bit more work.
And so, so how long was it until you went into your second pizza shop?
Yeah, I'm almost positive it was October of 91.
Right.
Uh, Not too long later, I purchased a my first building in North Andover, Massachusetts. I started negotiating. We signed an LOI, by the time I closed, it was in 1991.
Okay. And then, where did the growth of the pizza chain at this time? You're starting to probably create a name for yourself a little bit, and you have the systems and processes in place, I would imagine. So, what happened over the next, in the '90s then?
Yeah, what I really did is, you learn a lot of lessons when you start a business from scratch. And so it took me a couple of years to get my feet underneath me as far as understanding the business itself, because you have to understand I never worked for anyone in my life. I create this business when I'm 21 years old, really don't know what I'm doing. I start to put a business plan together. I get it approved by professors, but still you have to step out at the edge of that ledge. You have to have enough confidence to be able to take that next step, to know that there's a solid ground underneath you. All you look down, you see potential, failure, disaster, or how am I going to do this? But you have to have enough confidence in yourself to take that next step, even though you might not know where your foot is going to land. And so during the 90s, I just really concentrating what I call copy and paste. All I did is I found another location. I did the same thing. I took the money from the two existing pizza stores and put it into the third store. And for many months, in certain situations, I would literally take the profit and pay and follow that same program that made me successful, which is pay my vendors a little at a time till we were able to open up the third store. And from that point on, one of the great lessons I learned is I never wanted to not own my own real estate. I just felt that the people that own real estate control their own destiny. I think, that the markets will change, but what will not change is the fact that you own real estate, and over the course of time, it will appreciate, given the fact it's good real estate. And you don't always have to hit the bullseye. It doesn't necessarily always have to be an A or a B location. You can buy a C location with hard work. Even the C location will appreciate over time. And so, very clear vision that I had, DJ. My vision was work really hard. I wanted to work, 20 years and then take a look at what I opened. And for 20 years, my vision was, how do I get to 20 pizzerias, 20 pieces of property in 20 years? I never imagined that would amount to what it is today, early on and back in 1990. But today, I'm proud to tell you we own and operate close to 10 million square feet. We have 130 pizzerias. We're some of the biggest manufacturers of pizza, pasta, bread, home meal replacements, calzones in the Northeast. We have manufacturing plants that are in excess of about 400,000 and change. And so really it's been quite an opportunity, quite a journey. We are the second largest developer in the state of Massachusetts after 34 years of staying true and diligent and focused. I'm very proud of this company, very proud of my family, DJ.
So, I'm gonna step back a little bit. Did you when you said 20 pizzerias in 20 years, did you get to that number before the 20-year mark?
I did, my friend. I would probably tell you in half the amount of time I was at 20 pizzerias. Probably closer to 7 or 8 years. I was at 20 pizzerias. So as an entrepreneur, you always reserve your right to change your strategy. And so very quickly that 20 pizzerias became, all right, how about in the same 20 years, we shoot for, 40 pizzerias, and therefore it turned into 40 pieces of real estate. But something happened in year 10 or 12, DJ, that was really special. I said to myself, why am I stopping with only 2,000 square foot buildings? How about we try for 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, rent 2,000 for a Sal's Pizza, and then rent out another 3,000 square feet to the public and start deriving a rental income on the extra space. And that's how we got to the square footage we are today. I just kept increasing the square footage along the journey, DJ.
So then how many of the buildings that you have a pizzeria in do you own today?
Yeah, I think what happened is, as an entrepreneur, once again, my focus changed from owning 2,000 square foot buildings to buying, million square foot buildings, for example. So today we still own and operate maybe, 20 or 25 buildings that have a Sal's Pizza or a pizzeria inside of it, or a manufacturing plant. But really what we started to do, DJ, is we started to, perform and create mixed use developments through Massachusetts and New Hampshire. And so not only does it have a small restaurant or pizzeria, but it might have, hundreds of thousands of square feet of office, other retailers, manufacturing, DCAM programs that involve, government agencies. So we do a lot of renting of our real estate to different sectors: medical space, educational space, energy space, DCAM or governmental space, and absolutely entrepreneurs, which is the backbone of anything we do in a mixed use development.
So in this journey, and you talked about mixed use and the way that you view the local areas is tremendous, because you truly are like, how can we make this better and how can we improve it and everything. When did you start taking that next step of, rather than just buying a building with the pizzeria in it, you said, all right, we're going to start expanding to real estate outside of the business?
So really, I started, percolating that idea in year 8 or 9. But still, we didn't want to get over our skis. So I wanted to find the right piece of real estate that encompassed additional square footage. And I would probably tell you, in 2002 is when I made my first acquisition of a location greater than 2,000 square feet, which incorporated me an opportunity to rent to different tenants other than a Sal's Pizza, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. What about the first mixed use development?
Yeah, so the first mixed use development came in 2003. Also, late 2003 is when I started to buy buildings. The first building I bought was in the mixed use development mindset. It was in 2003. I didn't pull my permits till 2004. I purchased a 240,000 square foot building in Lawrence, Massachusetts. That was a defunct mill building. That was this incredibly beautiful architecture. It was built at the turn of the century, but there were no occupants in the building. So how do we turn this wonderful opportunity into something grand? But I will tell you, that's when my philosophy changed. And what I did was I remortgaged all of my existing pizzerias that I accumulated over the last 10 or 12 years, as well as my home where my children sleep, my mother's home that I purchased for her. And I took all of that money, all that, and I created the equity, and then I purchased that building in Lawrence, Massachusetts that was 240,000 square feet. DJ, I'm proud to tell you, I had enough money to last 9 months to pay the mortgage and enough expense to do a build out for 30% of the building, which was a break-even mark for me. And all I can tell you is when you mortgage the home where your children sleep and your mother sleeps, I would show you a motivation that you've never felt before. And, in 9 months, I had I apologize, I had an 18-month run. And in 9 months, I was at 70% occupancy from the time I started construction.
Wow. Definitely speaks to entrepreneurism, right? Because you're like, let's go ahead. I mean, you were all in. I mean, there was really no going back, right? I mean, it's either do or die.
That's what it was, DJ. When you're an entrepreneur or you're G1 and you're starting something that nobody has done before, you have to believe in yourself. You have to have, not only knowledge and not only strength, but what will dwarf both of those two, which is sheer will. And I knew I had the knowledge. I understood business very well, or at least as well as I could in 2003, because you're always learning. And I knew I had the strength because of the endurance. I was used to working 100 hours a week and being very aggressive in my schedule of working very hard. But it was my sheer will and the will of this family and this organization that made us go from an 18-month do or die to a 9-month 70% occupancy because of that will and the motivation of not failing. And sometimes it's good to be afraid to fail. You've heard the quote, fail fast. Don't be afraid to fail. But I think what's important is also there's a feeling when you're afraid to fail, you will do whatever it takes, whenever it takes, and you will work as much as you need to because failure is not an option. And I really believed when I closed my eyes and I saw my daughter, who at the time was, 6 years old, and my son that was 3 years old. I used to run to work. I didn't even need, to get to work so I could start working and work hard for my family and my employees. So you're right. I did bet it all. I mortgaged everything in my life, and I bet and sometimes in life you bet yourself. I tell people it's a funny cliche: never bet the bet, bet the better. And the bet was a losing bet to go invest in the poorest city in the state. That doesn't sound like a very good bet as far as a strategy, but I didn't bet the fact that I thought I could turn a dilapidated building around using basic economic principles. I bet that I and this family could turn things around. So I bet on myself, and thank God the good Lord gave me that opportunity of strength and will to be successful.
Well, I've been in this family office space now for geez, close to 10 years. And the biggest thing that I've gotten out of it with the principals that I've worked for is that they will surround themselves with great people, but at the end of the day, they'll bet on themselves. And so you saying that, just strikes a chord and which is important. Now, looking back on that, right? What mistakes did you make in that project that if you knew, you might have done something different?
Well, I knew a couple of variables, right? One of the variables, it's extremely hard to finance buildings of that magnitude, of that sheer size. I'll give you an example, BJ. You know, I own about a dozen properties in Lawrence, Massachusetts that are part of a campus. But one of the buildings, the first building I bought, if you stand it up, it's as tall as the Massachusetts Prudential building at 52 stories. The second building I purchased, if you stand that building up, it's as tall as the Empire State Building. And the third I purchased over time, not all at once, the third building I purchased, if you stand it up, it would be the 10th tallest building in the world at 200 stories. That was 1.6 million square feet of volume. So, your question is Sal, what mistake did you make? Well, I knew a bank wasn't going to finance me because banks just don't finance that kind of project in that type of an urban setting with that type of an economic challenge. But one thing that I will tell you, it pertains not only to real estate, but really my business, which is intertwined. The two exist together there. they can't exist without each other, but they prosper together. And one of the things I did is I made a mistake by being by expecting the people that I hired early on to continue to grow in my organization and take more responsibility. You know, I'm a graduate of MIT, I'm a graduate of Northeastern, and I say that very humbly. But some of the individuals that started working with me, they were these pizza managers or these managers of the real estate, small pieces of the real estate that, in some instances, respectfully, that they didn't even graduate high school and they didn't have the understanding of the business acumen of how to manage people or how to grow a business. And so what I did, DJ, is out of loyalty to those individuals, I promoted them and put them in positions that eventually they failed. And I take full responsibility because I failed them. I asked somebody to do something that they weren't capable of doing. And I apologize to those employees for that. I didn't fire them. I just repositioned them in the organization of more of a position that suited them or that their capabilities they had. And I actually literally apologize to some of those individuals. But my advice would be the mistake I made is I didn't put the right person in a position to be successful. I hired or elevated friends and family members into positions that they weren't suited for. And that was probably my biggest mistake. Today, I'm in the acquisition all the time of talent based on the position I'm asking you for. And don't let ego and loyalty get in the way. If you're a loyal individual, which this company is, DJ, let's find a position. If you're loyal to that individual, find a position that they can be successful. They'll have a happy life and you won't be disappointed. And you'll consequently have a happy employee and you'll be proud of that employee and they'll make you proud of them.
You know, I'll tell you, especially when you start a small business, I think it's what you did and using some of the people that you've used before, you trusted them, right? And they've worked hard for you, which is totally understandable, for bringing them in. But, you know, people do make a big difference who you have, especially their knowledge, right? So that you don't have to do that, or teach them. So you're now the second largest developer in Boston. Why why not outside Boston or Massachusetts, I mean?
Yeah, so we're the second largest developer in Massachusetts, and we're one of the largest developers in the state of New Hampshire. We have some of the biggest projects right now on the board that we've broken ground. We're in the or finalizing the last details that will give Massachusetts and New Hampshire those two mixed-use projects. They'll be the biggest projects in that state to have started in 2025. And so we're really excited about that. But you are correct. We are in Massachusetts, second largest developer. We're in New Hampshire, one of the largest developers. Two of the biggest projects of that state right now underway. So, you know, is there an opportunity to branch out to other states? I'm a very hands-on individual. So isn't this organization. We have about 1,000 employees, DJ. And so at where I sit today, I enjoy being within a 2-hour radius of anything I purchase because I'm a kind of person that needs to touch it, smell it, feel it, taste it, hear it. I want to use all five senses on a piece of real estate that I want to acquire or that I'm fulfilling a dream on constantly.
Hmm. So now the areas that some of these mixed use projects that you have are not, it's sort of like the first building that you purchased, are not in the best areas, right? And why do you take on, I mean, not only is it a mixed use, which is a large project, which there's a lot to be done, but when you add in an area that's maybe not as booming as much or as developed as much, right? That adds another layer of challenges. Why have you gone into these various areas throughout Massachusetts that, you know, other people might not consider as a first choice?
If you bet yourself, DJ, and you know what your capabilities are, and you look at the market and you study it, you can really understand that real estate over time will appreciate. Will it depreciate in some form? In some markets, yeah, but it'll eventually come back up. If you look at real estate on the whole, nobody knows that better than you, DJ. But why did I go to these challenge communities? I'll tell you why, DJ. What I would do is I would find pieces of real estate in challenge communities that were on the outer perimeter of that city and or town that abutted a more affluent or a better community. And,
Mm.
as the saying goes, when they asked John Dillinger, why did you rob banks, so many banks? He said, that's where all the money was. Why did I go to challenge communities on the perimeter of better communities that nobody wanted to invest in? Because I knew there was value there. If I was to go to downtown Boston today and I had ample opportunities to buy large pieces of real estate in Boston, well, the problem is, DJ, as a result of sometimes time, i.e., permitting process, or because Boston is such a incredible city within the United States, that most of the deals in Massachusetts in prime areas have been retraded 4, 5, 7, or 8 times. So this arbitrage that you would look for, that you want to buy at a 5 cap and sell at a 4.5 cap, I'm going to tell you that arbitrage is few and far between in certain asset classes in Boston, Massachusetts. So what did I do? I took that same mentality and I said, listen, with the sheer will of this organization, can we go to the perimeter of some of these nicer areas or the outskirts of some of these more challenged communities and create value there and wait for the market to that circle to expand and encompass some of these projects that we started. So that's what we did, DJ. We went to areas just on the outskirts of some of these, more desirable cities and towns, and we bought in the least desirable area of that outer circle. It's much like Manhattan. Why did people go to the Bronx? Bronx was only, 15 minutes away from Manhattan. So you could go to parts of Bronx or today at parts of Harlem. And if you bought parts of real estate that were on the outskirts of the Bronx and or Harlem, you're a very wealthy individual today because you had the foresight and the vision to buy property 20 years ago. And as that ring expanded, it encompassed the Bronx. It encompassed, Harlem. It took over, the Tribeca area or some of that warehouse industry, the waterfront where nobody wanted to go. And that's why I did it, DJ.
You know, one of the things that I've with our time together and speaking and whatnot, one of the conclusions I've come to is that these are amazing projects. These are great projects, but you don't look at it as just the real estate. You seem to take a care in the community that you're in as well. Is that safe to say?
That is very safe to say because, I want to share with you a few thoughts that we have as a family, as a company. First of all, I'm very passionate about every community we go into. I want to become part of the fabric of that community for various reasons. But one of the reasons are when you go into some of these communities, you fall in love with what is really important, which is the people of that community. And, early on, coming from humble beginnings, I can remember what it was like to eat pasta 5 days a week, not because culturally that was what, the Italians ate. I ate it 5 days a week because my mother could feed 6 boys and a sick father on $2 or $3 per meal because of the inexpense of that food item. So I learned very quickly what humility was. I learned very quickly, of how to stretch a dollar. But I also realized quickly people that I grew up with, they were hardworking individuals. So and who loved their family and were passionate about their community because when you're poor or challenged, that's all you have is family and community. So when I came into some of these communities, it was reminiscent of when I was growing up, and I took a liking to it. I also made a promise to my father early on before he passed. He passed at a young age of 61 years old. And I really believe as a result of the pizzerias and the real estate, it kept him alive to advise me and gave him a will to live to take care of his son and give his son advice for 13 more years. But, one of the great things my father taught me was promise me you'll make a difference in people's lives. You will be the benefactor of some really great business decisions. And Sal, I've seen young men and women like yourself, their philosophy of hard work and their passion to their family. You're going to meet people that are less privileged, and you promise me you'll make a difference in their lives. And DJ, this is from the soul, the bottom of my heart, my inner soul. That was something that, as we started to acquire real estate, became very passionate, became another motivating factor for me is how does this organization impact people's lives? And we're proud to tell you that we've created thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs as a result of these mixed use projects. You've visited them. And I will tell you, just in Lawrence, Massachusetts, there's 5,000 people that work in the campus that we created. 15% of them are from the heart of Lawrence, Lawrence being the poorest city in the state. So imagine almost 1,000 people, DJ, put food on their table and have a job because of a G2 vision, second generation from Italy, but G1 as far as starting a business from by himself or with the family. That G1 mentality of you're getting to see the benefits of your hard work that not only benefits your employees, your family, but other people. So we started a 501c3, Lupoli Family Foundation. We have other nonprofits. We donate primarily to hospitals because we realize those frontline workers and what hospitals really need to inner city communities. And we also invest in education and children. So our primary focus is children, education in gateway cities or challenge communities, and naturally hospitals and pediatric centers.
You know, one of the stories that I'll tell people when I talk about you, is when I came to visit and you were showing me around the buildings and you took me to this parking garage and you said, "Hey, let me show you something." Can you tell me a little bit about, how that came about and what that actually is?
As a result of losing my father early on in my life, my father and my mother were the greatest mentors in my life. Although I was taught by Nobel Peace Prize winners in finance at MIT, and I had some of the most brilliant people on the planet educating me and me trying to learn lessons in business, it all boils back down to the great lessons that my mother and father taught me in my life. Um, and some of those lessons they taught me in life was, remember where you came from. Who you are is where you came from. And so, coming from a background that, was the mentors in my life were my mother and father. The other mentors were my football coaches because I was able to go to college on a full athletic scholarship. Otherwise, I would have probably joined the union and worked, with my back and worked really hard. But my football coaches helped molded the individual that I became. And I never forgot that. So when time became available in my schedule, I think it was in 2003, as a matter of fact, 2004, my father had just passed away. I started to become a football coach at the varsity level for Chelmsford High School. And I became involved with the Papuana program. And so for 17 years, I was a football coach in my local town of Chelmsford. But one of those games, one time I was conversing with one of the other coaches who happened to be from Lawrence, who said, "Sal, we're going to have to move the game to your home field, not ours." And when I asked why, he said, "Because sometimes in Lawrence, we have some challenges. Kids go on the field at nighttime and they party and they break bottles or they do some destructive parts of the field. And there was a big party over the weekend and we can't play on our field." So at that point, it's someday this family, this organization is going to build a field for the kids. And for the next several years, I try to find a field in Lawrence that we could adopt and create this wonderful experience for the children and the athletes of Lawrence and the families of Lawrence. And I could never find one. So I had a vision in 2007. I said, you know what? I'm going to build a parking garage because someday we're going to need elevated parking. And on top of the garage, I'm going to build a full-size football, lacrosse, soccer field. And I can only tell you that it only took me 17 years. But in late 2023, I cut the ribbon and we had built a full-size regulation soccer, lacrosse, and football field on top of a parking garage elevated about 60 feet up in the air. We put nets up there, 30-foot high nets, and we put lights. And all I can do is I will make a tear come to your eye on the weekends when you see these inner city kids that have no place to go playing on one of the best turf fields that I've ever seen in the country, if you want my opinion, because I'm not sure something like this exists, playing under the lights in a very safe environment because I now protect that field. My team protects that field. So there's no partying or there's no things taking place on that field. It's strictly that field is used for the children, the people that work here, and the people that live here. And we're very proud of that. And we're very excited when we see those, 5-year-olds up to, 17 years old playing, whether it's a girls' soccer program or a boys' lacrosse program. We're very proud of that, DJ.
One of the what I remember is you also told me a story where there was a couple people playing up there, and you started walking out, and they were sort of, freaking out a little bit like, "Oh, we're sorry." And, you told them, "Look, this is why we built this, just so you've got a place to come and play," and, that's fantastic, truly fantastic. So I just got a couple more questions here. You talked about family quite a bit. When I walk into or anybody walks into your office, there seems to be, some artwork that's in the corner. Can you talk about that a little bit? How that came about and what it is and how that impacts you even to today?
So as I alluded to earlier, the two most influential people in my life were my mother and father. Now, having said that, I come from a big family, and I told you 6 boys altogether, no girls. When I started my business from scratch, I asked my 2 younger brothers and my older brother to come into the business over different stages, over different times. Within 4 years of opening the first store, 3 of my brothers were working in the organization. My 2 oldest brothers, they were already entrenched and they were married and they had their own life, and they weren't able to kind of give up what they had and start into a pizza business that was still in the infancy stage. But those 2 most influential people that I talked about was my mother and father. But I had lost a brother in 2007 to leukemia. When I lost my father in 2003, it was such an impact in my life that I never thought I would recover. My king, my mentor, my president, my priest, my psychiatrist, I had lost him, and really it was a void in my life. But what I did do is I built a beautiful bust of my father and I hung it up in my office. And every day I would come in and I would see that bust and I would talk to my father. And for a period of time, it gave me great solace. It gave me great comfort because I felt that he was talking back to me and giving me advice. And then the next person that passed away in my life was my brother James, unexpectedly died of leukemia at the age of 44 in 2007. And so I had a beautiful bust of my brother James made. And as my father, I would ask my brother for advice, and somehow they would give me the answer. I would close my eyes really tight. My father would eventually give me the path to take, or my brother would advise me of what to do. And I really believe in that. But I didn't realize after I lost my father that I thought was the alpha dog and I thought was the person that gave me all my strength. I realized it wasn't my father who gave me the strength that I possess or the will that I have. It was really my mother. And my father gave me other incredible attributes and personality traits, but it was really my mother that gave me that inner strength, that will. And unfortunately, in 2012, she came down with lung cancer. I lost her in 2014. But prior to her passing, we would have lunch every day, not too long before she passed. And one day I was talking to her and I said, Mom, someday, 100 years from now, I'll have the beautiful bust of you made. Um, and you'll be right next to Dad. And she said, I'm not going to settle for a bust, not what I've done for you and your brothers and your father. I said, what is it that you want? She said, I want a full-size statue. I want it in the lobby. I want to see who comes in late and who leaves early. And she said, if you don't build me a statue in honor of your mother, then I'll come back and haunt you. And I want that. And so it took me about a year, but I was able to find someone to build a full-size statue of my mother in her likeness off of a picture. And that sits in the lobby today facing the door. And not a day goes by that I'm not able to see my mother when I walk into the office, say goodbye when I leave, say hello when I arrive, but also when I see her, I know she's watching. And that too, as well as my father and my brother James, gives me great motivation to continue to work really hard for the employees in the family.
So family is a big topic you continue to talk to, and your business has recently come to the point where you're starting to have your kids be part of your real estate business, right?
Correct. I think in any business, if you're serious about your business and you want it to live on beyond you, what are you doing today to think about that next transitional change? Hopefully, it's a transitional change in generation. And I was always infatuated since I was a young man, over 30 years, 34 years to be exact, of starting my business. I was always infatuated by the family that was a bricklayer, or the family that was the drywall contractor, because these are the people I dealt with as I built out Riverwalk and some of the surrounding properties that I own. And I was always infatuated that I would see the great grandfather, the grandfather, the father, et cetera, the son. And I said, that is a true sign for me personally, a sign of success, to be able to create something that will live on beyond myself. And so, therefore, when I had my two children, my daughter Mary, who is now 28 years old and works in the organization, and my son Sal Jr., who is 24 years old, who is just about to enter the business. He's finalizing his master's at Bentley University, his undergrad Bentley. My daughter, master's at BC, undergrad Bentley University. I said, we as an organization, the way you innovate is also, with innovation comes vision. With vision comes culture. With culture comes strategy. Now, I promise you, culture will eat strategy every day of the week. But, when you create that vision can't be a 30, 60, 90, 1 year, 2 year, where am I at in 3 years? This family, when I look at a project since I was 20 years old, I look at it in the form of, where am I at in 20 years? Where am I at in 30 years? What program can this family put together that will last in 40 years? Now, I'm 58 years old. We now have been for several years working very hard on the transition of G1 to G2. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does this transition look like in 10, 15, 20 years from today? We're not waiting 20 years till I'm on my deathbed, or till I'm at a point in my life where I no longer can function in the day-to-day operations. I don't want to wait till that point, DJ. What are we doing today to bring Mary and Sal into G2, into the business, and make sound choices, but understand at a very young age what it takes? And then I'll tell you the truth. I want my kids today to start thinking about when their children come into play, or when they, transition to G3. I want them thinking about it today, even earlier than their father. And I think the earlier you can think about something, the easier the transition will be, the more advice you can get, the more clear thoughts you'll have, the more ability that you'll have to strategize, and the vision that you create. So that's kind of the way we look at it, my friend.
Are they both in the real estate side?
No, I think they both, fortunately, we've been blessed to be able to create a business that really crosses over from hospitality to real estate. And there are other pillars within real estate, other pillars within hospitality, but really, their vision is both to learn both aspects of business. So my daughter is focusing on the real estate today, Sal Jr., while he's actively honing his skills for his MBA. He too wants to understand the hospitality and the real estate. And my daughter, who has started in real estate, is now transitioning and getting a better handle and a better understanding, might be more appropriate, on the hospitality. So they're really focused on both aspects of the business, so they can speak articulately to each other. If one of them decides to have a passion in one or the other, well, at least the other can offer advice from a lens that they understand, as opposed to, I never went into that aspect of business, I can't help you or advise you on a strategic decision.
You sort of opening up the kimono and engaging your children. That's one of the biggest problems that a lot of patriarchs have, which is passing that torch, right? Because they've always had controls, and it's a matter of they just keep down focused. Um, what keeps you up at night?
I think what keeps us up at night is we've created a machine, and that machine has fulfilled, and I knock on wood with that, had fulfilled a dream that I've always had to take care of my family. But that machine now incorporates more than just my family. I have over 1,000 employees. And when I go to sleep at night, I say, how do I make this machine continue? How do I continue to make really great decisions in order to incorporate the people that have been loyal to me or work in this company? How do I make sure that they have a 401k that's fully funded? How do I make sure that they're climbing the economic ladder on a daily basis? How do I make sure we're taking care of their families by supporting them and giving them great paying jobs or caring about them, making sure they have medical insurance, making sure they have, the qualities of life that they expect. We come from a mill. The mill that I purchased was really the scene of the first organized strike in this country. It was called the Bread and Roses Strike of Lawrence, Massachusetts. And that Bread and Roses strike, that 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 significance of bread and roses had a meaning back then, and it's something I incorporate now. And maybe it's because, I become a part of Riverwalk or this campus itself because of what it meant to so many people. But when the strike happened, it was called the Bread and Roses Strike, is because they needed bread to eat, but they wanted the rose because they wanted the finer things in life. I look at the same thing with my employees. How do I provide them a quality of life that they can take care of their employee and they can take care of their family members? And how can I give them the rose that bloom so they can enjoy a quality of life? So I think, that bread and roses analogy that I gave you keeps me up at night. My employees focusing on how do I work hard for them and how do I take care of them? But, it's not really just it's now my children, it's now my key employees, it's now this company. How do we take care of each other? And I think that's the greatest thing that keeps me up is how do we as a company, how do we take care of each other to make sure we all benefit and prosper?
I was going to ask you what gets you up in the morning, but something tells me that it'd probably be the same thing that you just said. It's worrying it at night and then getting up to say, okay, we got to do this. Is that safe to say?
It's as simple as that, EJ. Sometimes life is not complicated, it's simple. Sometimes people complicate it. And I think just the passion that I possess, my family possesses, I want to take that passion from myself and pour it into my children and my key employees so they understand that vision and what lens they look through. But you are correct. If we can get everybody thinking the same way, then we become very stronger, all of us together. So whether I wake up with the same vision that I go to sleep, I'm going to tell you it's very close to the same every day.
Sal, I really want to thank you for the time. I know you are super busy. I mean, we didn't even touch on some of the other businesses that you have and that you're developing and continuing to build. But what you've created is nothing less than spectacular. And bringing in your kids and wanting to give back is uh, inspirational, to say the least.
All I can tell you is whenever I see your name pop up on my phone or I know I'm going to have an opportunity to interact with my friend DJ, it brings a smile to my face. Sooner or later, you and I are going to, figure out something that we can spend more time with each other. But I have the utmost respect in you, DJ. I love what you do. I love the passion you possess, and what you do on a daily basis by bringing families together and impacting their lives is a big deal, my friend. I wonder this, I wonder if people, when they look at you, they don't understand the opportunities that you created for people that you don't even know, they'll never meet, that you helped change their lives because of your advice. You help some of these families make the right decision. And you might not even have met the great grandchildren or the nieces and nephew, but because of your influence and the team's influence, you've changed their lives. That is truly a great gift, my brother, and congratulations for having that.
I really want to thank you for taking the time today to speak to this. One of our missions is to help other families that are maybe moving into real estate, or how they can learn from other people one way or another, both the pros and the cons. And so this has been a fantastic. I'm sure it will be very well received. So thanks so much for being on the show.